Well, as I sit right now, it's January 2nd, 2025, and I am recording the first episode of The Lip in 2025. My name is Phil, and you're listening to The Lip. All right, episode 1 of 2025, which is actually episode 189 of the show in general. 189. It's a cool number to me. Makes me think back to my days as a wrestler. Of course, in middle school and high school, I actually wrestled weight classes 158 in middle school, and then and that's of course when I was in seventh grade, and then in eighth through 10th, before my unfortunate retirement due to knee injury, I was 171. And the thing that made me smile a little bit about this being episode 189, remembering my weight classes, was by my junior year, I had contemplated thinking about wrestling a much heavier weight class. One that in my school, of course, had a lot of pride to it. Really did. Because my wrestling coach at the time, Coach Jerry Tabacino, great guy, as intense a coach as you'll ever want, had developed an incredible guy who was a few years prior to my entering high school, and he wrestled 189 as his weight class. And this guy, Brian Stout, won the state championship at that weight class. So it's kind of a neat homage to 189. It's pretty cool. But as far as this show goes, here in 2025, I don't know. I'm thinking I want to talk about a few things that are going to happen in 2025. Not necessarily things that I schedule, just stuff in general that is going to be going on in the year 2025. And a lot of those things have nothing to do with my being able to control them. Unfortunately, for one in particular, I would very much like to have a little bit of say in one of them. But that is not to be. Hopefully, you all had a very pleasant, if not incredibly wonderful, set of holidays, which we have just come through the other side of. Thanksgiving, Christmas, season, and of course the New Year, which was just a few days ago, as I record. Hopefully, everybody enjoyed it and had a pleasant time and got to spend the time with the fam that you wanted to, you know? But now it's time to see what's actually going to happen in the year. And I've got a lot of things that I want to talk about. And some of them I thought that maybe, I don't know, was I going to have enough time to talk about it all? But I should. Pretty sure I should. Which goes to the fill in the blank question, which I have for you right now. Strangely enough, it almost feels like it's out of place to use this as the fill in the blank question, but in truth, it's really the only thing that could pop in my mind that made any sense. And that is, do I have too much material for this show? My answer to that would be, well, I'm not real sure. That's how I fill in that blank. I'm not real sure. Because some part of me says that there's stuff that I wanted to add to this. And then there was times when I looked at the notes that I had written probably a few weeks ago thinking about this show, and it seemed like it was a little thin. But I'm not sure if it's going to be too thin. I think it might actually be right on the money, right where I usually like it, the sweet spot, somewhere between, the whole thing going around 55 minutes to an hour and 10, somewhere in that neighborhood. I'm pretty sure I might be able to hit that mark, but we'll see. That's the beauty of the recording, right? We're only going to know when we're all done. So, let us begin by ringing the bell and starting the main event. Of course, one more time, do I have enough material for this show, the first show of 2025? And once again, my answer is we'll find out. The bell is about to ring for the main event. 2025. I just like the idea of having a year that ends with five. Of course, I'm a little partial considering that my birthday is universally divisible by five. It's really kind of cool. Just a simple mathematical anomaly that just so happens to work out for me. Birthday is May 5th, 1978. Think about it. Completely divisible by five. 5 plus 5 plus 1 plus 9 plus 7 plus 8. What do you get? 5 and 5 is 10. And then you get 1 and 9 is 10. Then you get 7 and 8 is 15. Add it all together, you get 35. It's kind of neat, right? I think so. Then you divide all that by 7, and what do you get? You get 5 again. I mean, it's very interesting that my birth date happens to be divisible by 5. That's just cool. So anytime a year ends in a 5, it just makes it even more fun to me because now when you think about it, you add those numbers together, but you have to do it a little creatively in order to make it fun because it's not going to work if you go 2 plus 2 plus 5 because now we only get 9. But if we take the 20 and the 25 and add those together, that's 45 and 35. Now we're talking. Once again, divisible by 5. Neat. Just my thinking about that. Wasn't even anything that I was going to talk about. I'm just sort of ad-libbing that one because I just thought about it. It's kind of neat. I love stuff like that. But speaking of stuff like that, what I actually think is going to be interesting that's happening here in a couple days, actually, as a wrestling fan, I'm going to keep this short because I know that some of you are wrestling fans who listen to the show, and then there are a few of you who may not necessarily be. But I think that it's important to touch on this, considering that 2025 will be the first year that, well, Monday Night Raw, WWE's longest running show, longest running weekly show that used to come on cable forever, is now going to Netflix. Gigantic deal that they had made for something like $5 billion in 10 years or something like that. That Monday Night Raw is going to be on Netflix, and it's going to all start on. Is it 10 years? I can't remember how many years it is, but that's irrelevant. WWE is still getting $5 billion to put their show on a streaming network that is global. $5 billion. And all that starts on the magical Monday of January 6th, 2025. As I record, that's 4 days away. Monday Night Raw on Netflix. I hope that they pull it off, and I hope that it does better than Paul Tyson fight did, because man, that thing had such horrible lag, and I wouldn't know what to do if it was like that. And I was trying to watch, I might lose my mind. But at least I can say that when I watched the games on Christmas that the NFL had, it was relatively clean, and it gives me hope for Monday Night Raw. It really does. And maybe even the NFL too, considering that they're trying to have a global reach. Just thinking about it out loud. But what if they decide to stream Monday Night Raw on Netflix too? Granted, it's on a nice channel now. ESPN's doing a great job, but Netflix, imagine how many more eyeballs they might get to watch the NFL. Just thinking out loud, though. Just thinking out loud. Another pretty cool thing that's going to happen this year. I know the Marvel Cinematic Universe has been around for well over a decade now. And a lot of great movies have come through, and some that people think were not so great. And I always told people who didn't like some of the movies that came out or some of the series that came out, it's all part of the story that they're trying to tell. So you got to kind of put up with it. For example, for years, I really didn't like Iron Man 3. It just bothered me. The idea of the Mandarin not actually being the guy who has the 10 rings, and he uses the alien technology to fight Iron Man, but it doesn't fit with the story that they're trying to tell throughout the cinematic universe. And I just sort of bit the bullet on it and just let it ride. And of course, in that movie, I hope I'm saying it right, Shang-Chi and the Ten Rings, one of my favorite lines in that movie connects to Iron Man 3 in such a wonderful way that it put a smile on my face. And I was completely over what I hated about the original Iron Man 3. The father, in the process, says a line that was just great. He goes, "The Mandarin." Now, I'm paraphrasing here. So, they're supposed to be afraid of an orange? And I just got such a kick out of that. To the point where it made you think all the years of watching Iron Man's number one nemesis be the Mandarin, and then he just put it like that so coldly to the point where it's sort of like, wow, do I even care about the Mandarin anymore? I don't think I do. He's irrelevant. Why am I afraid of an orange? And from that point on, I was like, all right, I'm good. I'm cool. I'm not so upset about it. I can think about anything other than the Mandarin now. I say that because what ends up having been a birthday movie for me for over a decade, there has been some sort of Marvel Cinematic Universe movie that has come out, and this year is no different. This one could be rather interesting because of something that I routinely say on this show. And to make no short story about it, I think it's neat because one of my favorite actors of all time is entering the Marvel Cinematic Universe under some not so great circumstances, unfortunately. Harrison Ford is taking the part of General Ross because the previous gentleman who had that role passed away. And so Harrison Ford, Indiana Jones, Han Solo, is going to be General Ross. One of my favorite actors of all time is taking that role in the movie The Thunderbolts. Now, not The Thunderbolts. He's also going to be the guy who's obviously, I called them the Thunderbolts, but Captain America, the Brave New World, we're going to see the thing that makes me smile the most. Whenever I talk about being aggravated, agitated, and upset, I say that I'm going to turn into the Red Hulk. Well, it turns out that General Ross, well, not to give you too much of a spoiler in Captain America, the Brave New World, but General Ross is the person who becomes the Red Hulk. The power that just gets so angry with him, he can actually get flames coming from him. And the fact that I mention him all the time, especially when I talk about some of the things that have angered me over the last couple of years, I refer to the Red Hulk. So in 2025, rest assured, we will get to see the Red Hulk on screen. And I'm looking forward to that in a very big way. Of course, it is, as I record, the second day, third day of January. I don't know if that's gone to midnight yet. No. It's still second day. Still January 2nd. And I was a former gym rat, as you know now. Used to go all the time when I was working at the jail. This time of year, even though I have had this back injury and haven't been in the gym in a couple of years, it still just skeeves me out when I think about this time of year, because all the people who decide that they want to have those New Year's resolutions. I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to work out, I'm going to lose weight, or I'm going to get in better shape. And they all decide to go and get those gym memberships that they didn't already have, or worse yet, they dust off the ones that they've been paying for a year or two and are now getting ready to go back in. What they're going to do is noble in their thought process, and I'm going to say the idea is good. A simple term that everybody's probably heard if you even come near a church. The body is willing, but the spirit is weak. Other way around. The spirit is willing, but the body is weak. They literally have the mind, hey, I'm going to go do this, but then they get in there and like, no, no. And they work hard. Don't get me wrong. They really work hard getting in that gym for that first 4 to 6 weeks. And the ones that last 4 to 6 weeks, do all that stuff and have that momentum. And then they get to around, like I said, halfway through February, and they don't push through the soreness. They take an extra day off that they wouldn't have taken during that 4 to 6 week period of time. And then next thing you know, that's it. They're done. But while they're there, 4 to 6 weeks, all of my gym rat brothers and sisters who are busting it up every day, all the time, all year long, now have to wait a little longer for their machines. They have to wait a little bit longer to get on that treadmill. They have to wait a little bit longer for that dumbbell that one person picked up, just one, when they need, my gym rat brother and sisters actually need 2 dumbbells to do some dumbbell presses. But this person's just doing single arm curls with 1 dumbbell. That's the weight that they want to use. Ugh. It should be illegal. But over that 6-week period of time, that's just what it is. And you just got to deal with it. I'm trying my best not to turn into the Red Hulk right now, just thinking about it. And I haven't been in the gym in 2 years. and it's got me all angry. It's a nightmare. But that is something that we get to look forward to here in 2025. Um, Another really, really unpleasant thing in 2025, and this one goes real close to home for me. As a 49er fan, it turns out that by now, if you know anything about professional football, you must have heard about the 49ers quarterback, Brock Purdy. He shows up on a lot of um, Toyota commercials since when he was drafted. He was driving a Toyota 4Runner, and he got a lot of sponsorship from that because they made mention of it. This kid did some incredible stuff from where he was drafted, but it's like anything. You have to be in the right place at the right time, and fortunately for him, what happens is the better and higher prospect you are, you end up going to the worst team. That's just the way the draft works. The stinky teams are able to get the high rated rookies. And as the draft moves down, the better teams don't get the better players because they've already got really good players most of the time. And so it sort of helps for them to have to make trades and make moves in order to get those players that are on a higher level. But almost 100% out of 100, those guys, they have to really do their homework when they're a really good team, aka the 49ers, for the last several years, have been strong. And they've had to really do their homework on some of the lower draft picks in order to get really good players. And that's essentially what they've been able to do, with the exception of that kid that I won't name, the one that now played for the Cowboys, that the 49ers got rid of because they ended up trading 3 first-round picks in order to move up in the draft to get. And boy, he did not pay off at all. Yet, they got good old Brock Purdy as the last pick in the 2022 draft. It's a hurt piece. They go and get Trey Lance, I said his name, with a third pick in the draft after they had to trade 3 first-round picks in order to get him. But they just let it play out the way it was going to play out, and a gift fell into their hands as the last pick in 2022. Brock Purdy. Jimmy Garoppolo was at the end of his tenure in San Francisco. He got hurt, lost his job to Trey Lance, who proved to be a draft bust. In other words, for those of you who don't understand what bust means, he didn't pan out. He didn't play as good as they thought he was going to. And so, due to injury to both Garoppolo and Lance, the reins of the 49ers fell to Brock Purdy. And, well, he didn't do much of anything in his first year. He just went undefeated in the regular season, won his first 7 games, beat the old master Tom Brady head to head. No big deal. Then he goes and gets an NFC championship game in his rookie year and loses that game to the Philadelphia Eagles. And I might add, I've made mention of this 100,000 times to the point where I can't believe I'm mentioning it again, but it's important to the 2025 story that I'm going with here. He ends up in the first drive injuring his elbow severely. He ends up needing to get Tommy John surgery to fix his elbow. And that happens in the NFC Championship game. 1 game away from the Super Bowl. 1 game away from the Super Bowl. And the guy can't throw the ball. Literally. He physically can't do it. And so the next year, he gets himself healthy, gets that Tommy John surgery, recovers, and what do you know? They ended up with the first seed in the NFL playoffs in the NFC, and, well, they go all the way to the Super Bowl and lose. So Mr. Purdy's looking pretty good. This year, they lost 10 games. Why did they lose 10 games? Well, part of it, a lot of the defensive players got hurt. A lot of the offensive players got hurt. Christian McCaffrey was on the cover of Madden football. And for those of you who don't know, there's been a curse on the quarterback or whoever is on the cover of the Madden game. Nothing good happens. And that's why, as much as the Eagles fans may say Saquon Barkley would be the best person to be on the Madden cover, I think for his sake, he is not on it. Hopefully, he can avoid that. Christian McCaffrey was almost the MVP of the NFL. He ended up as the offensive player of the year. And the 49ers were in the Super Bowl mostly because of his efforts on offense and Brock Purdy knowing what to do. And this year, McCaffrey had a severe issue with both of his Achilles tendons on both of his legs, where he ended up going to Germany to get treatment, came back for a game or two, and he still wasn't right. It's just that Madden curse just got him. And the whole team just didn't pan out really good this year. But 2025 is going to be a big year because, well, it's time to make a decision on how much to pay Brock Purdy. Now, this is the hurt piece here. Like I said, 2023, he lost the Super Bowl. 2022, he went to the NFC Championship game, the game before the Super Bowl. This year, not such a great year. They've lost 10 games, not going to the playoffs. They're not looking good. Now, what they should pay him for what he's done versus what other people have done, well, let's go over that a little bit. Two-time MVP, possibly three-time MVP, Lamar Jackson for the Baltimore Ravens, has not sniffed an AFC Championship game. Okay. Trevor Lawrence. No, well, before we get to Trevor Lawrence, Lamar Jackson, $185 million. Trevor Lawrence, $200 million. Hasn't sniffed more than one playoff win. Not real good. Justin Herbert, as of right now, as we speak, $218 million contract for the Los Angeles Chargers. And right now, he's got Jim Harbaugh as his coach, the coach that took the 49ers to the Super Bowl in 2012. I don't know if he's going to be able to get there this year, but I think they are definitely on the upward path with Mr. Herbert. So, is he worth $218 million? No playoff success. Now, Joe Burrow here, he's beaten the 49ers a couple times in the last couple of years. And more importantly, he has actually gotten to a Super Bowl. And unfortunately, he was not able to pull it off. But he did get to the Super Bowl. Deshaun Watson for the Browns. This guy, between all sorts of lawsuits and injuries and when he was out there playing, he just wasn't very good. The fact that he made a $230 million salary and he doesn't even know what the word playoff looks like. No clue. And there is one other guy that I like to mention, and that's Dak Prescott for the Dallas Cowboys, who is making $60 million a year. And he's been around 8, 9 years now. And he has yet to get past the divisional round. He's never seen an NFC championship game, never come close, because it seems like just when he gets that first playoff win, which he only has two, I believe, he just doesn't do much at all. And Brock Purdy has been to an NFC championship game in his first year, a Super Bowl in his second year, nearly an MVP in that second year. So these guys are making 40, 50, $60 million a year. I think it's time for Brock Purdy to break the bank. Just, I'm sorry, just on principle. Just on principle alone. Those guys that I mentioned, Deshaun Watson, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence, those guys, they have a combined one Super Bowl loss between all six of them. One Super Bowl loss. 6 quarterbacks, one Super Bowl loss. Brock Purdy has one Super Bowl loss. I'm sorry. He's the only thing that you can look at these guys and say that Brock does not have is Lamar Jackson's MVP. He didn't have that. But when you look at the pay scale and what you're going to pay your starting quarterback, you have to respect the fact that he has taken the team as far as he did. Granted, everybody's like, well, he was given Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk and Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle and a defense which has had 2 defensive coordinators go off to become head coaches. Yeah, they had all that before Brock got there. And they couldn't get as much success as they've had since Brock has gotten there. There's a new pay rate, new pay scale, and I think that there are probably, safe guess, anywhere between 15 and 20 teams that would pay him between $40 and $60 million tomorrow. So if the 49ers want to avoid a huge catastrophe, which is giving away what could be your franchise quarterback, that's on them. I'll be sick. But if they keep him and he gets his mind right, which it seems like it's slowly getting there because he felt this year that he had to do more. And granted, some people would say, yeah, he needed to do more. But my stepfather Roger used to say this about quarterbacks all the time. You can't take the ball, throw it down the field, catch it, and then hand it to the receiver. You can't do that. So it's not all on him. The other guys have to perform as well. He doesn't play defensive tackle or cornerback or safety on top of playing quarterback. No, the defense has to do its job as well. I do think that he is worth that money, and they're going to have to pay him this year. Because if they don't, and they let him go, it'll be one of those stories that will be remembered for a long time when he wins a Super Bowl for some other team. Whew, now that I got that off my chest. Speaking of lottery tickets, turns out that at the end of 2024, somebody in California won $1.2 billion in the lottery. That's certainly a nice way to start 2025. $1.2 billion. Of course, that's going to boil down to about 600 million. It's sad, right? 600 million, yeah. All that you could have done with 1.2, and now you're down to 600 million. What do you? But having said that, in 2025, they're changing the price of the lottery tickets. Now, granted, I said to myself that I wasn't going to buy these things because I just felt like I would be saving more money by not buying them than I would have by buying the one for $1 billion. Now, get this. They're $2 now, the Mega Million. In April, they're going to be $5. Now, what does that mean? Essentially, the lottery rises the more people play. And the more they play, the more money they put in. The more money they put in, the bigger the jackpot gets. Now, at approximately $2 a ticket, you got to consider they sold well over 500 million tickets, 600 million to get to that number of ticket of price for the prize, minus the first 20 million, which they already start the pot with. So, what happens if you add $3 to each ticket? That number's going to jackpot, rather, the jackpot's going to get even higher, and it get higher faster. And the fact that the last several years, we've seen a couple of these $1 billion jackpots. Several, 400 and 500 million. I think that the norm may be after a few weeks, 500-600 million, and we're probably going to see $1 billion multiple times. I know a few years ago we almost had $2 billion. Quite literally, the person who won that jackpot could very easily have cashed out at $1 billion. Just about $1 billion. And it seems weird to think that now we're going $5 a ticket, that the potential for a $2 billion jackpot, it's real. Like, it's really, truly real. Because at 1.2 billion, imagine, again, if you added those extra $3 per ticket now, I mean, this jackpot would be easily $1.75 billion, maybe, just a guess. So I'm thinking in 2025 we may see our first $2 billion jackpot in the lottery. Wow, it's a crazy thing. But at that same note, what would have been 5 lot tickets if I paid $10 for them is only going to be 2 tickets. And I wouldn't, in my wildest dreams, be one of those people who's going to go to the lottery ticket and slide in a 50 and say, "Oh, let me have 10 tickets." No. Mm-mm. I do have my limits. And mm-mm, mm-mm, that's too much. If I played $5 for one of these Mega Million tickets, it would just be one ticket. and it would be maybe every couple weeks. I wouldn't go every week and pay $5. No, no, no. That's just that's a negative, negative, negative. But on that same note, you've heard the thing: nothing ventured, nothing gained. It's like fortune favors the bold, all that stuff, right? But if you're putting your fortune in the lottery, well, you're going to be out of a bunch. Just think about it. It's a lot of money that you're putting in, but you're investing it in a dream, in a very rare possibility that you could be the one out of several million chances of winning. Would there be a better use of that $5? I'm thinking maybe. But we'll see how it all plays out. They're still $2 now. I may buy a few. Hopefully, hey, how about that? Win the big jackpot before April and never play it again and I have to worry about it. That's also a thought process. But now I'm going to talk about soda. Yeah, one of my favorite things. If I had a singular vice, that vice would be soda. Now, back several years ago, there was a soda that made me say, I'll pass. I drank exactly one of them, and I was done. Just like college basketball. One and done. That soda was Jolt. Yeah, Jolt. Super sugary, high caffeine soda. And that stuff was more than I wanted to bargain for. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. I eventually came to the conclusion that I liked energy drinks probably 10, 12 years later after drinking Jolt for the first time. But there was just something about that cola taste that Jolt had and the caffeine that was in it. It just didn't sit well with me. But come 2025, Jolt is making a return. But not just any return, they're putting it where it belonged. Let me start by saying what it was before. Now, the average soda, which is my favorite one, especially now, Mountain Dew. Love Mountain Dew. Truly the nectar of the gods, Skip Bayless says. He's right. Now, a 12-ounce can of Mountain Dew has about 55 milligrams of caffeine. That's pretty high on the scale of just regular soda. Now, Jolt, back in the day, 12-ounce can was 71 milligrams of caffeine. 71. Now, that's pretty head spinning because to give you an idea, Red Bull, an 8.5-ounce container of Red Bull, had 80 milligrams of caffeine. So the thing that they absolutely 100% consider an energy drink, Red Bull, with 3.5 ounces less in content, had simply 9 ounces, 9 milligrams more of caffeine than Jolt. crazy to think that soda had that much caffeine in it. Now, I had a friend who actually had an equation, which I can't remember off the top of my head, so I'm not even going to begin. But there is a mathematical equation which will tell you how much caffeine you would drink before it would kill you. And I'm thinking that if you drank a 6 pack of Jolt, you'd probably be awful close to it, depending on how much you weighed. Mathematically, like I said, you'd have to weigh a certain amount, and you'd have to have a certain amount of caffeine per how much you weigh. And I'm thinking Jolt for some people might have been real close to it. But now they're bringing it back, and they've categorized it where it belongs. It's no longer going to just be in the soda area. It's going to actually be considered an energy drink. But they've made some concessions to it. They've changed it a little bit. And I don't know if they made it for the better. They took out the sugar. That's one way to start. And I'm beginning to find that it seems like a lot of these energy drinks now that are really potent have taken out the sugar. Like, man, C4 is a really, I think, of a lot of the energy drinks that I've drank, C4 is a really potent one. And every one that I've seen is sugar free. So they take out the sugar and they just maximize the caffeine. Boy, that's what they've kind of done with this new Jolt. Now, remember, like I said, a Red Bull at an 8.5 ounce can would give you 80 milligrams of caffeine. So if you were to double that and make it 17 ounces, you'd be talking about 160 milligrams of caffeine. And this is just from the regular sugared version, so you get the sugar out of caffeine. But now, Jolt is going to be bringing them in the 16-ounce cans or containers. I'm not sure what they're going to use. But that's an ounce less than you get from 2 Red Bulls. And they're putting 200 milligrams of caffeine in it. No sugar, but 200 milligrams of caffeine. So, putting my head to this, it's like, all right, Red Bull, you get an extra ounce of liquid overall when you drink these two cans, but you're getting 40 less milligrams of caffeine. So that 1 ounce was 40 ounces. Oh, it's still, you have 1 ounce more of liquid and 40 ounces less caffeine. That's something. That's more than my mind can comprehend. That's just insane to me. And the thing that's weird about that is anybody who actually drinks a lot of energy drinks, or in my case, in the past, who has drank a lot of energy drinks, will know that there is a limit that most people don't pay attention to, and they really should. Most of those energy drinks say that you should limit yourself to 3 a day. So, if you were to drink 3 of those Red Bulls, I mean, you had another 80 milligrams of caffeine, and we're talking, what is that, 240 milligrams of caffeine with 3 8 ounce, 8.5 ounce Red Bulls, where just one Jolt has 200. That's insane. Absolutely insane. Ugh. Well, I'm so glad that I have virtually stopped drinking this stuff. And boy, I know that I wouldn't go anywhere near Jolt. Just not my cup of tea. But if you're into that, boy, it would be beneficial probably if you worked overnights. Probably be able to work a triple just by drinking one of these things. But on that note, 2025 is going to bring in some very interesting things. One more recap: Raw on Netflix, The Red Hulk. Brock Purdy's going to be a multi-zolti zillionaire. And maybe if you get a lottery ticket for $5 in April, you might have a chance to become multiple times a millionaire yourself. And this Jolt thing, man. Drinking over that, you'd be able to stay up all night and all week and maybe for a month. Who knows? On that note, I'm going to ring the bell for the main event and move right along into the Spear of the Week. This week, if you live in Philadelphia, you know what the Spear of the Week should be. Man, there is something fierce about this wind. I know it wouldn't be smart of me to try to spear wind because you're not going to hit me. But let me tell you, that wind has certainly speared all of us. Whew. Man, 40-degree temperatures outside in December and January. But this wind has been so penetrating that it is like getting speared right through the gut, right through a wall. Ugh, it's unbelievably harsh. So the only thing that I could possibly call the Spear of the Week this week is this horrible wind. Huh. Last few days, nothing you could do about it. It just hits you, and boy, you really need to put some ankle weights on. You can carry a 45-pound plate so you don't get blown away. Spear of the Week, a wind. Well, I'm going to go back into my NFL picks. I got 2 more weeks that I'm going to rapid fire throw at you because we're at the end of the season. This week is coming up on week 18, last week of the season. But I'm going to tell you what I did in week 16 and week 17, but I'm going to do it in reverse. Going 17 first, then I'm going to go to 16. Specific reason for it, but I'll let you know. My picks for week 17, I had the Chiefs over the Steelers. I got that one right. I picked the Bears to beat the Seahawks, and I was wrong. I got the Commanders to put down the Falcons. Man, I'm telling you, I like the Commanders. And I was right about them again. The Bengals versus the Broncos. I like the Broncos. The Bengals did it. Bengals win 30-24. And Monday night, the 49ers just got beat by the Detroit Lions, who they defeated in the NFC Championship game last year. But both teams are different. The 49ers are way injured, just way out of confidence. I was hoping they would win 35-28, but they lost 40-34. Now, that gives me week 17 record of 2 wins and 3 losses, but this is why I wanted to go to week 16 next, because it makes up for all of that nonsense. Week 16, I picked the Chiefs to take down the Texans. I said 27-10, Chiefs 27-19. Bears versus Lions. I had the Lions over the Bears 42-21. Score 34-17. Okay. Commanders again. I'm telling you, I like this team. They might go a little bit ways in the playoffs. Eagles lost that game. I picked Commanders 28-23. Commanders won 36-33. Got the margin nearly right. Commanders, they're a strong team. I like them. Minnesota versus Seattle. I said 35-31 Minnesota. It was 27-24 Minnesota. And then the pick that I was unfortunately right about, Dolphins, 49ers. I said Dolphins 21, 49ers 10, 29-17, Dolphins. Took me 16 weeks, but I did it. I hit every single one. Week 16, all my picks were winners. First time I've done it. Best I've done since that was I've had a couple weeks where I was 4-1, but this is the first time I was 5-0. That's why I wanted to do that set last. That's why I had to do week 16 after I did week 17 because I'm proud of myself and pat myself in the back. I was 5-0 in week 16, and I did terrible in week 17. I was actually 2-3. So, yeah. But overall season record 51-34, and I only got 5 more games that I'm going to pick for week 17, which means I have clinched, more so than clinched, a better than 500 record. I got a winning record for certain. Even if I go, God forbid, 0-5, I'm still going to be 51-39. I got a winning record this year. This is great. Can't wait to start the playoffs when it comes up. But first, let's go into week 18. I have the Browns beating the Ravens in a division match. Minnesota, Browns-Ravens, I say 17-14 Browns. Vikings versus the Lions. I'm about to change my score, but I'm going to keep... This is too big a game. I'm keeping it the way it is. And that's going to be to the favor of the Commanders. But I'm going to keep it the way it is. I say this score is going to be just as high as it is. But I'm reversing the score. Originally, I was going to pick the Lions. But seeing as they took my pitiful 49ers, took them to the limit this year, and I like Minnesota as a team better, I'm going 49 Minnesota, 45 Detroit, because Minnesota is going to try to take this division all the way, and they're going to try to get the 1 seed in the NFC. And I'm pretty sure that they're going to pull it off because I think that the Lions are not quite as strong as the Vikings are right now. Commanders are going to eat up the Cowboys 28-3. The Falcons, they're going to beat the Panthers in a loser bowl 26-10. And my 49ers are going to show a little bit of dignity, and I think they can beat the Cardinals 24-17. I expect to win at least 3 of these games, but if I don't, like I said, I'm going to be over 500 either way. I'm happy about that. Next, and last, it's time to shut down the show for the day. I had a fun time talking about the first show of 2025. A lot of fun indeed. Hopefully, you get to see some of these things that I was talking about, and time as the time goes on in 2025, and who knows what else is going to happen there, right? Who knows? And just by looking at the clock on the show, I had more than enough material. I did. I must admit, the thing about the gym, I just ad-libbed it a little bit more than I expected because I didn't even write it down on my notes. It just popped in my head when I was in the middle of recording. and I just couldn't stop myself. But of course, you can check this show out and all the other shows that I have on the YouTube channel at Phil the Lip. Subscribe. Check out the other videos that are there as well. Instagram at Philip Henderson 5102. Facebook, join us. The Lip Facebook group, join us. There's always room for one more. And this piece of art that I'm displaying for this episode is one of the pieces that I made for the series that I like to call the Color Series. Last series that I made in 2024. This one, just like the one I showed you from last week, it's part of that series, and it may be one of my favorite pieces. It just might be. I call it just as simple as the one last week was green. This one is brown. It's just got an offshoot of different shades of brown. And I think that looking at it from a full point of view, I mean, this one, it's simple. But simple isn't bad. I think it's good in this regard. It really is. But I do think that it really may be my favorite one of the group. I think about it. This might be. Just might be. But it is now time for the words of wisdom. And I think that if I had words of wisdom to tell you about 2025's first episode, I would say, in a nutshell, buy a lottery ticket while you can before the price goes super high. And that's a weird thing for me to say, but I think that, to me personally, buying a lottery ticket now would be the way to go, because I'm that person who has a limit to certain things, and price affects my thought process sometimes. Like, I love bacon, but the price has been so outrageous for the last several years. I haven't bought a pound of bacon in a long time. I just haven't. I'll get some if I go to a restaurant, but to buy the whole pound, I haven't done it. That's just the way I think. So, my words of wisdom to you would be, well, while you can still afford the lottery ticket, maybe you buy one. That's all I got for you right now. And on that note, my name is Phil, and you've just listened to The Lip.